How's everybody doing on the internet side of things? Good, cool. Today we're going to try to cover monitors and FollowFocus, which I have set up over here, and wireless video. I'm going to start with the Shoguns because they're the most important part of all of this for monitoring. Unfortunately, I can't get the Shogun menu to show up on here. So I'm going to try to show you guys online through here and come up a little closer. But the main reason to use a 7-inch monitor is to see your frame a whole lot better than this tiny little LCD can show you. So you can plug into SDI or HDMI depending on which version of this you get. If you get the Ninja Inferno, it is a 7-inch Ninja. So don't get the Ninja if you're expecting SDI ports. You will only have HDMI on that model. I'll show you that in a second. But it's something important to note just in case you get that model and realize that you needed SDI. Specifically for the EVA1, because I know a lot of people are wanting to shoot ProRes RAW out of this camera. And that means you have to have an SDI connection in order to make that work. So we'll get to that in a minute. I'm going to go over the basic menus. If you guys can't see anything while I'm doing this, let me know and I'll bring it around. But this is the basic user interface. As the camera focuses tool. So you have your record button, your playback button, and your menu. And then over here you have some assist features once the camera focuses. Come on. Okay, the blue one is your display options. Oh, I don't have a signal connected. Hold on. Hold on, guys. Sorry. All right, well, I will explain it here and then I'll show you guys on the camera. But like I said, there's a couple of assist features here. The blue menu has a lot to do with your display options. Tell you what, I'll just move this over. Sorry about it. You're all right. Don't mind Hans in the background.
I'm showing that. Can I take that?
You can take what? Yes. Back here. Take that. I'm just going to change my shot so that people can see what I'm actually doing on the camera. As long as it will focus on the Shogun. Not bad. Okay. Let me turn my brightness down so you guys can see what I'm doing. Oh, it's all the way down. A little better. Okay, so I apologize if there's some glare from the camera. This is the menu I was talking about. It's a blue icon. It's got dots connected. Really wish you guys could see this. I'll try to explain it in a second. You have all your assist features here. So you have your waveform, you have your RGB parade, and there should be a vector scope option in here as well. You can also change how big each of those are. So you can change it to be tiny down here, or medium size where it goes along the bottom, or you can make it full screen so that when I'm changing my exposure, I can see what my waveform is looking like. I don't know how well you can see that, but it's those lines. It's exactly like a sound waveform. You can also change the transparency. Oh, here we go. That'll help you see what I'm doing. So if I change my exposure, you'll see it increase or decrease. You can change your brightness of the screen or the actual waveform on here. I'm going to leave it down so that you guys can see what I'm doing. Then there's RGB Parade, same idea. In fact, I'll go out of the menu so you can actually see what I'm doing. RGB Parade is most helpful for white balance. So if I change my white balance here to something drastic, you'll see the red and blue channels are changing. And you want those all to be level with each other at the very tips and at the very bottoms. That's called black balancing, which is a totally different process. I won't talk too much about that today because we're focusing on other things. Let me know if it's too out of focus when you guys are watching. I'm going to switch over, change that back to waveform and make it small again. Then if you go to this little red target, you can choose your focus assist option. You can change the color of this and how it functions. Right now it's going into basically black and white mode and it's blue peaking. So you can change it to pretty much any color you want. I usually pick red. And then you can change your zebras from here, which is also something you can toggle. You can also toggle false color, which is an extremely helpful tool for exposure. Basically, if you look at the chart online, there's a gradient of color for highlights to shadows, and it will tell you if you're overexposed or underexposed. So if you blow it out or the shadows don't have any information, and it will also tell you if your skin tones are accurate. There's a specific set of colors. I believe it's a peach color, almost a skin color. And if that's on your face and then you have green in the shadows, you're accurate. The other way to do it is if you have a color chip, you can use middle gray and use your waveform to change that to 40 IRE, which is going to be 40 on that scale. So super helpful tool. I believe that is just black and white mode, so you can check your contrast. And then you have a whole bunch of frame guides for those of you who love to shoot 4x3 or anamorphic in 240 or 235. You can do that. You can also change it, how it displays on here, and you can also display anamorphic mode if you wanted to, which is what you're seeing right now. You can change between 2x, 1.5x, and 1.33x. We don't have any anamorphic lenses though, so I'm not going to go into too much detail about that. Then I'm going to go, so this is semi-helpful if you want to. The green flag is if you want to say, I like that clip or I don't like that clip. And there's a couple of metadata options in there, but I don't actually use that. That's for your script soup to do. Then the 4 dots with a screen that's yellow right next to the green flag is going to be your monitor mode, which will let you change between all your log profiles. So you can set which camera you're shooting on and what profile you're in to adjust for your log to be back to Rec 709, so you can view in Rec 709 and understand what you're seeing. I'm going to turn this off so we can actually see that. And there is a Rec 709 option right over here on this side. Atom HDR, that's Atomos's version of HDR. Log to video is the most important one, and you can also do, it's called custom looks, which is where you can load a LUT into here and set it as one of the presets and use that to monitor your whole film. So if you build a LUT in DaVinci Resolve or in Photoshop, you can load it by the SSD and monitor on the monitor. That way you can see log over here and Rec 709 over here, and you can change all of that in the camera settings. You can also send it out by your SDI or HDMI signals so that you can let your directors see what they're actually going to see in the final film rather than the flat log profile if you're the DP. Because they do get a little annoyed when they're like, why is it so flat? They want to know what it looks like. And there's about 8 of those built-in LUTs. So you could build one for every location if you wanted to. There is also a few other options here, but I don't mess with them a ton. There's a record lock. So if you want to not, oops, press the record button, you can do that. There's also an output look. So if you're outputting from the Shogun, you can change what the output settings are so that you can, again, add Rec 709 to it. Right now, I was doing that to the TV originally. Actually, did you set up a wireless signal to the TV?
No,
Or,
I didn't do it.
oh, no, never mind.
You're plugged in.
I'm plugged in. I'm crazy. Okay, that's the basic menus down here. Over here, we have our audio. Can you guys see that okay? Cool. You have your audio monitoring. You can input audio straight into this if you needed to. So if you're recording on a Ninja, well, not a Ninja, but a Shogun from a camera that doesn't have professional audio, this is an option. However, you do need the professional or the proprietary cable to plug in XLRs to it. Mostly this is just going to help you with your strap straight from your camera, but that's how you monitor it. You have your volume here for your headphones if you plug that in here. And then up here, we have a whole bunch of options. We have our input settings, which will be what you're plugging into the monitor. And that can be either SDI or HDMI. I'm not going to touch it because you guys will lose your signal, but you can change it between 1080p, 4K, your frame rate. So right now I'm in 1080p 60, and I'm not actually shooting 60. I'd be in 2398. So that's an issue I'd probably need to correct so that I'm seeing the proper frame rate. Then you have your record trigger. And Jonathan, remind me which record trigger we need to use for ProRes RAW. Is it PANA 3?
For the recording trigger? Yeah, PANA 3.
PANA 3, okay.
Or no. It's
Is it just Panavision?
it's just Panasonic.
Panasonic, okay. So this is a perfect example. We were not set to that. We were set to Panasonic 3. So if you are set to Panasonic 3, if you can see that, apologize if you can't. Up here, if you're set to that, your record button will not work in ProRes RAW 5.7K. What it needs to be set at, and again, this is the trigger, is just Panasonic. So make sure that you set that correctly before you start your shoot. And if you ever go into the menus, just double check yourself, because otherwise you won't be able to record and you'll wonder why. There is a color correct option here. I have not personally used it, but there's a way to color correct the file as you bake it into the footage. You can also tell it what recording you want to do. Right now it's set to 1080p rather than 5.7K, which is an issue. You can also choose to pre-roll. Does anybody know what pre-roll is? And has anybody ever done sound? Most common with sound, where you can tell the recorder, oh, I want to pre-roll for up to 10 seconds before I actually hit the record button. That's most helpful in a documentary setup where you might miss something by not hitting the record button in time. For narrative, not as important, because you're not going to start the action until the director says it. But it's there if you need it. Quad link. I'm not actually familiar with quad link. I will pass on that for now. Then if you go to the next set of input, past input is your record format, which of course everybody wants to shoot ProRes RAW out of this camera. However, if you are going to do that, make sure that you select quality HQ. If you just do ProRes RAW without HQ, you're recording at a much lower bit depth. It means you're losing your quality. So if you plan to shoot ProRes RAW out of this camera, set the trigger to Panasonic and set your record quality to HQ ProRes RAW, correct? Cool. And then your recording time will show up here based on what format you've chosen to shoot at. It'll tell you how much record time you have on the card. And then you can also preview the other versions of ProRes. It'll tell you HQ can give you this much time and LT can give you this much time. That way you can choose, if you need more space, you could choose to compress more to get more run time. I'm going to go ahead and say okay to that. Okay. Next on our list is going to be our actual file naming system. Right now, it's set to Shogun Inferno in the shorter version, so it's SHGINF. You can change that to your film name if you want to. Just know that when we get it back, we're going to format the Shogun so that it goes back to what it was originally. So if you care about file format for post for your editor, you can change that. You can also change your scene number and your shot number, so you can keep track of what shot you're on in your metadata and in your actual file name. Moving on from there is your media page, which is showing that I have an AV Pro 500 gigabyte in there right now. So I have a 500 gigabyte SSD. This is where you're going to format from, and it will tell you, do you want to format? And then you hit format. You can also rename the device if you want to, and you can export an XML, which I haven't actually done, but it's, again, something related to color grading and going to another software where you can import your metadata and just start editing. So that is pretty much it, except for our batteries, which is up here in the right-hand corner. That'll tell you how much voltage you have left. And the best way to tell that is a full NPF battery, it looks like is 7.7 volts. And the one we're running down on right now is at 7.2. So it's about 3/4 full. You can also do DC straight to a plug if you want to from the kit, if you don't want to run through batteries quickly. I do recommend the big NPF batteries, and you need 2 of them on here, otherwise this will die pretty quickly. That's basically it for the menu system. Does anybody have any questions, whether in person or online? Is that pretty straightforward?
Do you have to set up the trigger in the camera too, or is it just on the monitor?
That is an excellent question. You do have to set it up in the camera, and I'm going to show you guys where that is. That's going to be in your output settings, and then SDI, because we're doing output through SDI to get the raw. Let me turn this off. Turn my waveform off, sorry. So you can actually see what I'm doing. Actually, you can see the TV for that. Let me pan over. Is that the right way? Nope, wrong way, hold on. Be easier to read if I do this. So, can you see that okay, Ariana?
Yeah, I can see that.
Cool. So let me back out so you can see the actual menu that I went through. So this is your main menu. Go to output settings and then SDI out. And then your SDI record remote needs to be set to on. I think Jonathan left, but
No, he's right there.
is that correct? Cool. All right. If that is not on, you will not see the Shogun light up red that you can actually record. Like right now, it's actually grayed out, but I'm not sure exactly why that is. I think that's probably because my settings are messed up. Well, trigger's right, but my record format's not right. So let me double check. Let me go check my SDI out, or SDI raw out. Oh, it's off. Okay, that would be why. So I'm gonna do wireless video real quick, which is this guy. It's called the Teradek. Teradek Bolt 500, I believe is what it's called. It has SDI and HDMI inputs. I believe you can convert them, but we're about to find out, because we have an FS5 over here hooked up with SDI, I believe, correct?
Yeah, make sure the output settings in the FS7 is to the SDI, because then it's not getting any video yet.
Okay, let's have a look. it's not receiving a signal on this end, which is interesting. Yeah. So this is a good example of how wireless video can fail, is if the signal over here is blinking on the camera, you will not get any signal from the camera, which means you have to troubleshoot what settings you're on from the camera on the transmitter side. This is the receiving side that I'm showing you right now. So it was set to 1080p. And oh, it's set to HDMI right now. You are correct. There's SDI.
Okay.
See if that goes solid here in a second. But we now have a wireless connection to the TV, which means I could potentially take this up to 500 feet away, direct line of sight, and still get a video monitor from the TV. Now, nothing very interesting at the moment, but
And we need to stop.
we can fix that. Long story short, we just showed you the tear deck. It should be simple and easy, but you need to make sure your menu settings are correct for you to actually get signal. So if you're set to SDI and you're using an HDMI cable, it won't send anything. So you need to make sure that whatever camera you're using, you have your output settings correctly. For the FS5, I went into the video out settings and changed it to HDMI. But if it's set to SDI or any other setting other than what you're looking for, you won't get a signal. So it's a lot of troubleshooting the first time you set it up, and then it should work flawlessly for the whole day. So it is a little bit of, add it to your lighting, pre-lighting time to make sure it's working. FollowFocus, as you can see, is not set to my actual stops, my infinity focus and my minimum focus distance. So it will work, but what I need to do is tell it, hey, I can actually go farther than that. You just can't tell that. And the way to do that is to calibrate it, which these guys are not helping with. I'm actually very close. Okay, so I'm at my minimum. What I need to do is tell it to go. Oh, is it auto calibrating? No. Interesting. Hold on. Okay. I am sorry that I won't be able to actually show you how to do it on the Cinegears, but this is the exact same principle as the DJI. So what I'll explain about the DJI, in the controller, there's a menu you can hit to calibrate. So you would, I believe it's right button, right arrow button, down in the menu, and then you go to calibrate and change it to manual calibration so that you can literally, the motor will kill itself and you can manually use your hand to adjust your left and rights, and then hit set. So you hit set on one side, set on the other, and hit OK. And that is now a calibrated lens so that you can do your full range of focus on that lens. I used to know how to do this. I will make sure I make a video about this particular one because this is the only unit we have from Cinegears. We have 3 more from DJI currently. So those are the ones that will get checked out more. They're currently out today. So I couldn't show you guys one of them. Apologies. Can you think of anything I haven't mentioned on these?
I mean, I haven't used the Cinegears, but make sure you charge it.
Oh, well,
Yeah.
let's go through the whole setup
Yeah.
for here. Can you zoom in? Are you guys able to see the laptop decently well? Does it go any farther or do I need to come closer?
No, it goes. It doesn't focus very well, though.
No, it doesn't. Go ahead and aim down some. A little bit more. Okay. So this is the actual module. And this is what's actually doing the pulling. It is attached to a 15mm rod by a clamp. We have our power going out to a V-mount battery, which is a D-tap. And I think this is a 5-pin. All that comes in the kit. but you're gonna need to know that you need external power for this FollowFocus. Most people are checking out an EVA1 or an FS7 that comes with a V-mount adapter, and you can plug straight into those D taps to power your FollowFocus and your wireless video. Right now, this is kind of the janky version. I believe there's also ways to power this straight from the wall, but I'm not positive on that. I'll have to double check for you. Pretty sure the remote can plug into the wall though, because that's battery powered. This is DC powered. But what you need to do when you're doing this is have some good cable management. So right now you don't. But you'd want to make it nice and tidy so that you can still operate the camera without having a worry about a cord getting in the way. And then, so that's your first thing you're going to build. And then you'll pull this out and calibrate it. Once that's all set, what I recommend doing at lunch, unplug this to save yourself battery, turn off your wireless FollowFocus actual puller, and then you can just turn them both on when you come back. Should remember your settings. If not, use that manual calibration I mentioned, and it should fix everything. If you use the auto calibration, it will run off the gears and destroy the motor. And that's what's happening a lot lately. So let's cover a different monitor than the Shogun. The Ninja is a popular first AC video monitor because it's a 5-inch. This is the Ninja, it's a 5-inch monitor. It only has HDMI in and out, so be aware of that when you're using a camera, because we do have one camera in the cage that only has SDI, Blackmagic Production 4K, so you can't use HDMI. Important to note, there's a record button here because you can record SSD on this. That's mainly important for our smaller mirrorless cameras, where you could possibly gain back some colored information. But you can do record and you can play back. Then you have this monitoring menu, which is what I have open. And you can find your waveform in there, which once again, we have a couple different versions of that. You can make it tiny, make it go across the screen. And I believe if you tap a third time, it should take up the whole screen. There we go. So you can at least see me adjusting the waveform here. And then I'm gonna go over to RGB. This is the same idea as what I just showed you on the other one, but it's white and black. But you'll see the exact same type of setup. This is blue, green, and red channels. And then you have your vector scope, which is something I wasn't able to show you guys on the other one. But your vector scope shows you your saturation, which is important when you're trying to get broadcast standards. These markers here on the edges are all different colors. So you have red, magenta, cyan, blue, green, and yellow. If they reach past that, you know that you're past broadcast safe, which means you need to dial it back in post. It's mostly just to tell on set, is that red, too red? Like, do I need to bring it back on a gel or something like that? Then we have, oh, that's another way to show your vector scope. And then the one that most people like to use is the focus peaking, which you can kind of see the red there. And then you have zebras, just like every other camera we have. I don't think I'll be able to show you the zebras because I have to make the shot too blown out to be able to actually see it. And then we have our false color, which I mentioned earlier. You can sort of see how it's rendering the colors, but much more accurate if I could show this to you guys in person. And then we have our contrast option again, where it turns to white and black to see if our contrast is accurate. Now, to access some of the other menus, you're gonna have to slide just like I did. The most important thing on this monitor is that you can do up to a 4 times crop on the shot to help with focus. So every other monitor you can only do 2 times. This one can do up to 4. which can be handy in a pinch. And then you have your frame guides, which you can change to just about any flavor out there. And you can change it to anamorphic view if you're shooting that as well. Then if you go to your menu over here on the right, you can adjust things like your waveform, your focus peaking, your zebras. But there's also this handy little folder called LUTs, just like I mentioned with custom looks on the Shoguns. Same idea, but in order to load a LUT into here, it's going to be an SD card instead of the solid state drive, which I believe is located. Actually, no, you do use the SSD, I apologize, which is over here. But I know that you can do an SD card if I'm correct. And then your monitor, you can set the LUT, what you want in here, and again, through the output, if you wanted to put a LUT on there. So if I change my monitor LUT, there's no LUT selected, okay. Let's see if we can pick one, or if there are any. Okay, there's no files on there right now, sorry. It's okay. Let me go turn this off. And then the last but not least, there's the display settings. Basically, this is just your backlit, your gain, and changing the contrast of the actual device if you needed to. I don't recommend that because then you're changing your color that you're going to see in post. But if you need to tweak it, like somebody accidentally touched it, that's where you're going to go. That's pretty much it because it's the exact same type of setup up here. You have your frame rate and your HDMI settings and your record trigger, what camera you're shooting on, and then your output settings are similar to the other one where you can change it from 4K to 1080p, however you need it to send it out to the next signal from the Ninja if you're using it as a through point. And you can actually change your gamma curve here, which is Rec 709 or DCI or PQ. Those are big words, but they basically mean the color space that you're working with. Rec 709 is what every TV uses. DCI and PQ are, DCI is 4K world instead of HD, and it's what we're going to go into eventually in the future, but TVs are still stuck in 709. PQ is a version of HDR, high definition range. If you've ever shot pictures for HDR, think the same thing but video, and there are capabilities out there to do that. Atomos is one of the big ones for that. Then you have your record page, which will tell you how much space you have left. If you want to pre-roll, file naming is right next to it. I don't know if that's going to focus well enough for you guys to be able to see that. Let's give it a second to try. Sort of. Okay, now you can name it pretty much whatever you want to. And you can change what shot you're on, what scene you're on, what letter you're on, all of that. And then the meters is for your audio, just like we showed on the other one. And then you actually can change your audio. There is an input here for a 3.5 jack if you need it. I don't know many people that use it. And then, let's see. I think that's it, except for your battery, which you can also view to see how much battery power you have left. One thing I will note about the Ninjas though, if you accidentally press the power button, it will lock the screen.
It doesn't fit.
So if you realize you can't change any settings, press the power button once and it'll unlock it again. So in order to actually shut the Ninja off, you have to hold it for 4 seconds, just like with a computer or a phone. That's pretty much it. Anybody have any questions?
Oh, sorry, does this monitor, does this monitor also have preserve recorder, or is it just?
Yes.
Okay.
So it does have an SSD,
Okay.
just like the Shoguns. Most of the time, you're not gonna get some of the higher end codecs that you'll get. You can still shoot ProRes 422. I don't believe, well, depending on the camera, you can shoot ProRes RAW out of this if you're using an S1H or one of the other cameras that's come out with that recently. Yeah, good question. And the other reason why that's a good question is we have a Shinobi, which is another flavor of monitor that doesn't record, it's just a monitor. But that can be advantageous if you're an AC. Because if you don't have that drive on there, it's not the extra weight. And this is actually the one that does 4 times, not the Ninja. I'll have us cut that out. But it's the exact same thing, just a little bit lighter, which is perfect for when you're doing AC work. As long as you can do HDMI, this doesn't have an HDMI out. And it doesn't have, oh, okay, that's the one that takes an SD card. Sorry, mixing them up a little bit. But we have 3 of these. We have about 7 or 8 of these, I believe. And we have 6 or 7 Shoguns. And then we have a couple of the Flame version. And we have 2 of the Ninja Infernos, which is the 7-inch version of this. Again, only HDMI. So make sure you don't get that if you want SDI inputs. And we have that all separated out in Connect 2. Anybody else have some questions? It doesn't have to be just on the monitors. It could be the wireless FollowFocus or the video. Anybody online have a question? Good? Cool.